Hi everybody, welcome to our 4 o'clock live. I am here with Sergio.
What's up?
How are you?
Good, I'm blessed. How about yourself, Jenny?
I am well, thank you. You guys, this is a very special day. Sergio, you are our longest standing employee of the Edge Treatment Center.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, I can't believe that. Yeah, it's been 4.5, 5 years now.
It like blows my mind. Because me and you, I was a case manager then.
Correct.
3 years ago, right?
Right.
Growth in the company and within ourselves. What's it been like being with the Edge since the beginning?
Man, it's been a journey. You know, it's been life-changing, to be quite honest with you, right? You know, I was giving probably a life-changing opportunity. Yeah, I was working at another job, and my friend Mark just literally passed by one day, and I was literally on the street just working, you know, and he walked up, and we had met before in the past, and he was like, "Hey, bro, like, remember me?" And he took me to the side, and I never would have thought that from that day, right, that my life would literally change, you know. I started working at the Edge as a house manager, doing night shifts, and it was just, I mean, even from the beginning, it's just, I don't know, this place has just been amazing. It's just been, sometimes it's even hard to put into words. It's been that great. And
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I know, like, this place is really not like my recovery.
Yeah.
But my life has changed just being around here at the Edge.
Absolutely, being around those like-minded people, building those relationships. Talk about divine intervention. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in that stuff through and through. It's like the synchronicities in our life and how things line up, you know, and how that was all meant to be, and us sitting here right now is how it was meant to be. And you guys, if anyone has a story of being on one end of the spectrum to the other, it's you, Sergio. Like, you have been through it. You know, I know that me and you have talked many times, but especially 3 years ago, I remember sitting in a group room with you, and you were kind of telling me your story.
Right. And
it blew my mind, you know, like where you've come from, what you've been able to overcome, the man you are today, the dad, the father, the husband. And everyone loves you. Like,
Man.
you bring this energy and this vibe and this positivity, and it shines. It shines through our center. It shines through the clients, through the staff, and we'd all love to hear. I'd love to hear your full story. I'd love to hear where you came from and how you overcame all these obstacles in your life to bring you to the point that you're at right now and the man you are today sitting here.
Cool. So I'll begin by saying that I was born here in California. I was born here in California. My parents are both of them from Mexico. My parents both met here in San Pedro, California. So I was born in San Pedro, and then my parents were already in a rocky relationship, right? That's the best I can describe it. Father was an alcoholic. My mother was a drug addict, and I mean, I went back and forth to Mexico as a little kid. I think the fondest memories of my life, you know, as we discussed in the past, you know, I grew up in a little ranch in Mexico, in Zacatecas, a little place called Victoria, Guadalupe. It's just a little small town. Was going back and forth from there. And then when I came back to the United States, you know, eventually social services got involved in our family. And there was 5 brothers. I was the 3rd oldest. And then probably from the age of like 9 years old, I think, or no, excuse me, from like 6 years old was the last time I seen probably 2 of my youngest brothers. So I went off to the foster care system, and then just getting bounced around through foster care. Then I ended up with my mom's brother, which is my uncle, and my grandma. My uncle was young. He adopted us, you know. I believe he was trying to do the right thing, you know, but I don't think that he quite knew how to raise kids that came with trauma, right? You know, and you know, believe me, you know, as a little kid, I seen a lot of stuff, you know. See my mom and dad fighting, you know. I seen a lot. I knew a lot. I felt a lot as a little kid, and I just knew that it wasn't. So, you know, growing up in an environment where my uncle was drinking, you know, he was part of, you know, he himself was a gang member. Drank a lot, you know, and then he was trying to carry on his life, right? And you know, it just got really dicey, really dicey. And my only recourses were, I just wanted out. By the time I was like 12 years old, 13, I was like, I can't take it anymore. So I took off to the streets. In the streets, nobody could tell me anything, so to speak, right? I just wanted to hang around people that loved me, people that accepted me. But I realized that like I had to do things for that. And they usually weren't always like positive things, If I ran up and I involved myself in gang, and gang-related behavior, like I got cheered on for that. Like, hey, cool, dude, you just did this, that, or the third to these people, or this, that, or the third, or you did this, that, and it was always like I started to like gravitate towards that negative attention. Every time I was getting carted off in the neighborhood from the police as a juvenile, getting carted off to juvenile hall, like I don't know, I guess I sort of liked it, that attention, right? So it just kept going on and on and on and on, and I grew up in the juvenile system, in and out. I had my first daughter when I was 15 years old, 16 when she was born. In and out, in and out.
What was that like growing up in juvenile hall? Were you able to have any sort of like self-awareness and insight that you didn't want to be this person? Or at that point, were you just so submerged in that lifestyle with your guard up that you weren't really even thinking about that sort of stuff?
Well, see, I grew up like in the 90s, so it was like, and the areas that I grew up in were like really, really entrenched in the gang lifestyle. So it was, to me, it was like almost like a big party in there. It was like, it was almost like going to college, right? Like you go, in there, you had activities, Monday through Friday, we go to school. So I was like, oh, cool, I get to go to school. So for you,
it was normal.
Yeah, it was like,
you weren't even tripping on it really that much.
By the time I was already 16 years old, I think I had already did like 14 months straight in the juvenile facilities.
Wow.
So to me, it was like normal program.
That was life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then mix in trying to be a father, not knowing how to be a father. But yeah, so it was tricky. And I guess almost I felt more comfortable being inside there. And then every time I would get out, I would just get shell-shocked, I was, and that's how I reverted into like drinking and doing drugs. Yeah.
So for your first little while that you were locked up and doing all that, were you addicted to drugs and alcohol at that point, or were you just dabbling and really just doing those things for that sense of belonging and family? I
think belonging and family. I think when I was like maybe 13, 14 years old, I smoked my first joint. It was on a little can in a park, we're just a bunch of kids. We were just smoking weed, but I don't know. I really wasn't into drugs because I had seen my mom die from cirrhosis of the liver. I watched her die in the hospital, and so I always knew that drinking and drugs were bad, and like they weren't really my go-to, right? I just kind of grew up with like nowhere to go. So every time I'd get out of juvenile hall, or I'd kind of gravitate right back to the streets, and then I just end up like lost on the streets, right? Or living with my daughter's mother's family. And nobody really to tell me like, no, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. It was more along the lines of like, I had a premature daughter. She was born 3 pounds, 2 ounces, and I was a juvenile. I needed to provide, a place for her mom. And it was just, onto drugs, my introduction to drugs was selling them. I'd be in my neighborhood and cars going in and out, up and down, all hours of the day. And I was like, hey, what's all this about? And the homies are like, hey, bro, here, take this to that car, bro. And just give me a little bag, and I'd run it back and forth. And next thing you know, $40 in my hand. And I'd give him the 40 and he'd give me $10. And I was like, damn, I was sitting there doing this all day. Next thing you know, I got $80, and I'm like 13 years old, 14 years old. So I just graduated to that, and then of course that led to me going, getting locked up and all that stuff. Okay.
So your family, so your mom passed away.
Yes.
Did you have any more contact with your father or your siblings, or what happened?
No. So when my mother passed away, it's kind of weird, right? Because like I have these fond memories of my father, right? He's probably to this day probably the most gentlest person I've ever met in my life. He's probably still my hero to this day. you know, even though he's passed on. But I went on to be, I went through the welfare services and all that, you know, and the, what do you call those, social services, you know, where they come in and they take the kids away and all that. So I went in to live with my mom's side of the family, you know, and then that's when we moved out to Westminster. And then after that, like, I just lost contact with my dad's side of the family. But I always held on to the memories of who they were, right? Like, I knew my grandma's names, I knew my uncle's names, I knew all my cousins' names, but I just didn't know how to find everybody, right? Yeah. So that I grew up we moved from Los Angeles County into Orange County, into like the Westminster area, and that's kind of like where I started to grow up at. I see. And your brothers? I have 5 brothers total. I'm the third of 5 brothers, but twin brothers, I'm the third, and then I got 2 more younger brothers. But when social services came in and like split the family up and took us all to like orphanages and stuff, my uncle tried to adopt all 5 of us, but he just couldn't handle us, you know. And 2 of them went back into the system, and my twin brothers and myself were raised, you know, with my mom's side of the family. And then just through growing up again, you know, through the gang lifestyle, me and my brother was shot and he lost his life, ultimately as a result of that. Can you tell us about that? What happened? Yeah, I mean, again, you know, I just gotten out of jail. I had gotten out of jail and I was working at this car wash in San Pedro. I was washing cars and had my first job, and I thought it was all cool. I thought, you know, it was getting like, anyways. And we were just catching the bus on the way back down to Stanton at the time. And we're just waiting at the bus stop, and you know, that area is a little bit different than our area, so we kind of stuck out like sore thumbs. And my brother was just me and him were just sitting at the bus stop, and all I remember seeing is a red car, like a little red car passing by, and just started shooting, bam, bam, bam. And that was the last time I see my brother alive. Wow. So you were there when he died? Yeah. What was that like? I can only imagine, and I'm sorry for your loss. I can't imagine what that would feel like. But can you kind of walk us through what your experience was in that moment? Well, it was traumatic, right? Like, well, actually, to be honest with you, like, I don't even really think, even to this day, like, I really like dealt with that, right? Like, it was just it's just you see somebody every day, and then you don't see them, and you know I ended up getting arrested as a result of that. I was on parole. You know, when my parole officer came to the hospital, they arrested me for, you know, not cooperating in a police investigation. I guess I was yelling at some cops there and all this, but yeah, it took me a lot of years to get over that. I'm gonna be really honest. Like, it took me a lot of years, and you know, even to this day, you know, I feel blessed that when I find, and I don't know, I'll take it back even a little further. So even to identify my brother's body, like the coroners and all that, like, I was in jail when they did this, right? So they came and got me from in there to pulled me out in shackles and took me to the cemetery and to the morgue, and basically just took the sheet off my brother, you know, and told me, hey, you know, like, is this your brother, you know? And I said, yeah, that's my brother. And I signed papers, you know, in there to identify his body. And then I also signed papers to authorization for him to be buried. So that was probably, you know, some of the most traumatic events in my life, right? You know, and my brother had a daughter. And when I was there with him, you know, for the brief couple minutes that I get to say goodbye to him, you know, I promised him, you know, I guess I promised him 2 things, you know. Me and my brother, you know, we both had daughters at the time, you know, and I told him, hey, bro, you know, like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but one day, bro, like, I'll get your daughter, bro. I'll get her, and I'm never going to forget about you. And me and my brother used to always like cars, so there was a specific car that we both liked, and I told him, I don't even know why I said that there. I was like, hey, bro, like, one day, bro, I'll get that car too. You know, and wow. So here we are. And were you able to do those things that you told him you would do? Yeah, as of maybe like 7-8 months ago, I finally was able to connect with my niece. My niece and my daughter have been friends through Facebook and this and that, you know, and you know, I'm really grateful that, you know, that that she had the heart to want to let me kind of just explain our side of the story, and got to go out with dinner with her, and like, I don't know, I love her like she's one of my own kids now.
I love that.
Yeah.
How did you find the motivation to keep going? Where was your drive in that? And how did you get out of the lifestyle that you were in?
So for me, like, just going back and forth, Jenny, and I got tired of it. I didn't know. I finally ended up, I lost my first relationship with my the mother to my two daughters' mothers. That relationship was destroyed, right? I was with her for like 14 years, and that was gone, of course, and then I don't know how it happened. I met my current wife, Gloria, and she's probably been the only person that's been there my whole life. Just like every time I was falling, she was the first one there. And I'm not saying I did it for her, but like, I don't know, like, just
you had that support for once, that positive, healthy, loving support for the right reasons.
Correct. And then just one day, once again, and I got locked up one more time,
When you were with her?
When I was with Gloria, I got locked up one more time, and she was getting tired. She had been back and forth to like 3 or 4 different prisons, driving like 4 hours to come visit me. I met my son there. I left her when she was pregnant, and went off to go do a prison term, and she brought my firstborn son to come see me in prison, and and it didn't even click to me yet, like, this isn't normal, Then just one day, I got locked up again, and I got into a really, really bad car chase / foot pursuit / canine pursuit with the PD, and I ended up breaking my foot really bad during that, and I got into a nice scuffle with the cops, and this and that, and I ended up in a, of course I was drunk and high, so I didn't feel none of that. So when I woke up in an infirmary in the jail, and for the first time in my life, I had woken up in a jail cell, and I don't know why this is so weird, right? But this is my story, right? Like, there was when I literally woke up to go wash my face, there was a mirror inside that jail cell, and I don't know, maybe because it was an ADA, like American with Disability Act cell, because I had a broken foot, I had to have different accommodations. But I for some reason, I just got up finally and went to go wash my face off, to kind of like, okay, let's put your game face on here, and let's go deal with this, so to speak. When I waddled over to that sink to wash my face, and I looked in the mirror, and it scared me.
That's powerful. When you looked at yourself, it scared you. And what'd you think?
Just a lot of emotions ran through me, right? Like, looking at my face, I was like, hey, dude, like, the last time I seen you, you were 3 years old. Hey, dude, last time I seen you, you were 6 years old. Hey, dude, last time I seen you, you were 13 years old. So that little hurt boy that was inside of me was looking at what I had done to myself, essentially, right? Essentially, I was staring at the person that, like, was responsible for everything that's ever happened to me in my life, as far as, like, as an adult and as a juvenile. Like, I did all those things.
All that accountability, the reality just sunk in that moment.
And then I sat down, and it scared me. And then, like, I don't know if anger was the word, but I think that it was I just got motivated because I didn't want to go out like that. I sat there and I looked at the cell floor, looked at myself, again, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to die like this, I don't want to die of hepatitis C in a prison cell, and and have nothing or have nobody, and I don't want to give my daughters and my son what was given to me, right? So I stood up one more time, and I took a deep breath, and I walked over to that mirror, and I told that mirror, I was like, and I never called myself my name, my street name was the only name that I ever used. But I walked up to that mirror and I said, hey, you know what, Sergio? First of all, I love you, bro, and we're gonna get out of this. I don't know how, bro, but we're gonna get out of this.
Wow. That's so strong that you were able to do that. And I think that's so impactful for people to hear. When you have that moment of desperation and surrender, whether it's you know, with your addiction, whether it's with your lifestyle, you know, how you've been raised, that we have choices. And when we have those moments of clarity, we need to recognize them and see them. And that's beautiful that you were able to do that and make that change. And do you feel like after that moment that it was this empowerment, that you had made a choice and you followed through with it?
Well, you know what, Jenny, I tell you one thing, like I had always made promises, you know, hey, I was going to do it for this, I was going to do it for that. But definitely I did feel it was different. Number one, because at that point in my life, at that very point in my life, nobody wanted anything to do with me. So it was just me and that dude in the mirror.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you're alone.
That's it.
The family that you had for that belonging that was out on the streets.
That was it.
All the reasons you kept going back into
nothing
jail,
to do with me.
nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
Why didn't they want anything to do with you if that's like was the lifestyle?
It was because it became to the point where I wasn't married then, but I had put in the mother of my children basically in a position where it was either my son and his future or to continue to follow me in the path that I was going.
Got it.
You know, and I'm very fortunate that she gave me that, like, that she stood up for my son, right? That she said, you know what, Sergio, I want nothing to do with you no more. And really made me feel that. You know, every collect call that I called denied. You know, and that wasn't the case in the past. You know, she was my person that I called and the second ring collect call from Sergio. Boom, press 5, and she was accepting, and she never judged me. She was like, hey, I'll be there on Saturday and we'll talk about it then during visiting day. You know, I'd get a fat canteen bag, and that was just, I thought that was life, you know. I thought that was life. But from that moment forward in that prison cell, you know, in that county jail cell, I just felt something was different, you know. I just knew that, like, I didn't want to die like that. I knew that I knew that there had to be something more to life. I just needed that moment to reflect, like, what was I gonna do? And I didn't have it figured out right then and there.
Yeah.
You know, it was
but you had the willingness.
I had the willingness. I was willing to do whatever it took, no matter what.
So how were you able to finally walk away from that lifestyle and that addiction that we have to those things, right? And start over?
It's been a learning process. You know, I'm not going to lie and say that it was easy, that there wasn't anything that or that if a new life just fell and hit me in my lap, right? I mean, I tell the clients, I literally started on the bus. You know, I started on the bus with a backpack. You know, I got out when I went into treatment, and, you know, to be honest with you, I went into treatment, I was in there for 10 months. I had so much pride, I had so much like that gangster mentality that, like, I can't ask you for help because you're the cops. You know, I can't talk to you about how I feel because it's weak. You know, I carried those, you know, like, or I gotta look, there's a room full of girls, I'm in a class with a room full of girls, so I had to be extra cool, you know, like I carried all of that with me into treatment. And 10 months later, I relapsed because I didn't have a foundation. I thought that as long as that I wasn't drinking, as long as that I wasn't doing drugs, I thought that my problems were solved. And lo and behold, that they weren't, you know? Yeah,
that's the thing, those underlying issues. How did you get through that ego and pride? How did you overcome that?
So 10 months later, I ended up relapsing. I relapsed, I went on a 45-day relapse. And I got locked up again for failure to report. You know, my parole officer was even reaching out to Gloria. I was like, hey, you know, tell him to come check in. You know, I'm not going to arrest him, but, like, I already had a taste. You know, like I was off and running, and I didn't know how to stop while I was in the streets. You know, like you had to lock me up for me to stop. So when I got locked up again, and I went back to the county jail, back to the maximum security where I go on the 4th floor, right there to E25, fourth cell, downstairs. I woke up and hearing the noise from the tier, you know, the cell door opening, the shower, you know, the guys yelling front to back and this, that, and the third, you know, it's just, when I finally woke up to that, for some reason in my heart, I didn't want to be there no more. And this is usually the place that was my comfort zone, where I could make it there because, you know, but this time I didn't want to be there. you know, in my heart, I didn't want to be there. And it was weird because it was like this conflict, like, wait, like, I've been in here for like the last 19 years, on and off, like, this is all I know. I can tell you the menu. I know I can tell you the price of the ramens on, you know, and this, that, and the third. Like, and I didn't want to be there in my whole heart. I didn't want to be there. You know, and my parole officer came and he visited me and he was like, hey, Sergio, what happened, dude? And for some reason, like, I don't know, I got honest. And I told him, bro, like, this is what happened, you know? He's like, Sergio, man, he goes, I can violate you right now and send you off to go do, you know, your year. And he goes, I know that's not even a problem to you. That's like almost giving you a reward. He's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't want to do this. I remember his name, Jesse Ordaz. He was like, bro, he was like, what if I gave you the opportunity to go back to the same rehab that you were at and work with this guy, you know, my case manager there named Ramon. He's like, will you do it? You know, he goes, don't just tell me that to get out of here. You know, like, be real, be honest, bro. Like, and I told him, you know what, Mr. Ordaz, if you give me a chance to go back to Patmore, which is an all, you know, parole, you know, place, I was like, I'll do it, man, and I'll be real, you know? And sure enough, got me out of there, went to go pick me up and drove me all the way up to Patmore with the handcuffs on, took them off at the door, and he just told me to be real, you know? And that's all I did, and here we are, you know, like, life started changing, you know, I started doing the things that people suggested, you know, like looking at the people in the rooms, you know, they're like, okay, well, I want to be like this guy because this guy has his family, this guy carries himself with, you know, this guy's caring, you know, like I didn't want to be like that macho, like tough guy, like, cause the hero in my life wasn't like that, which was my dad, you know. He wasn't that guy that, like, my dad couldn't walk down the street without 15 people telling him, hey, what's up, Saul? That's who I wanted to be, you know, like, I didn't want to be like this guy that walked down the tier and is like, hey, what's up, you know. Like, I didn't want that lifestyle anymore.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say that because that's how I see you now. You know, it's always such a trip when you hear people's stories and then you see them now. And I don't know you in that story. I know you as the man you are today, and you are that guy. I see you walk through the center or outside, everyone, hey, Sergio, hey, Sergio, what's up, Sergio. And it's like that you are your dad in that sense. Like, when you describe it like that, like, that's how I see you. And that's how everyone around sees you, you know, that you were able to break that cycle and find a better life and not be institutionalized. You know that you deserve better, that your family deserves better, your children deserve better. What would you tell somebody out there that is going through it, that has been through the system a lot of times and has been institutionalized, and when they get out, they don't know what to do but go back to that life? Like, what would you suggest to someone like that?
First of all, I just want to let them know that you don't have to go, they don't have to go back to that, you know, like, it's not, we almost feel like obliged and almost feel like it's a mandatory thing that we have, but like, in all reality, I would like to tell that person that, like, just to sit still, you know, just to sit still and to get some days out here, and, you know, you can have some good days, some bad days, but like, just to sit still, you know, and find himself, you know, whether it be a meeting, whether it be you know, a church, or anything that, like, motivates him or lights that fire in him, you know, whether it be a job, you know, like something that inspires the person, right? You know, and I think that, like, since I've come to work at the Edge, like, working with people has inspired me, like, because, like, I feel that, like, I can use my negatives, right? And like, hopefully share them with people, right? And they don't have to go through those things, you know, and I think that, like, even, I don't know, it's kind of weird that I say this, but, like, even if it's one person that, like, hey, you know what, bro, like, I know what you're going through, like, this is what I've been through, bro, like, and sometimes I get to do that at work, right? Like, I get to go by, you know, and in and out of the houses, and I see a guy sitting there, you know, and this is like, my heart just hurts to see guys hurting, you know, because I know what that feels like, you know, and I know what a little bit of inspiration can do to somebody.
Oh yeah.
You know, and yeah, I just got inspired, Jenny, you know, and like inspired to want to break those cycles in my life, you know, and to break those chains of addiction and drugs and gangs and my lifestyle, and that way my kids can have something better, right?
Yeah. What do you think you've learned about yourself the most through this whole process?
I think I've learned the most is that like I am capable of doing things, and I think I've learned that like when life happens, I don't have to like when life doesn't work out the way that like I want it to, I don't have to revert and go back to that old person, right? Like, and also I've learned that like that life gets better, you know, like life, you know, you gotta work hard at what you do. You gotta be inspired and be passionate about something, you know. And then when you're doing that, like it doesn't even feel like you're working, you know.
No, it doesn't.
It don't like.
We get busy and it gets crazy, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to do anything else. You know. What would you tell your son if he asked you about drugs and alcohol? And he's how old? 12?
11.
11.
Yeah.
What would you tell him?
I tell my son, you know, that like that obviously I would tell him they're not good for him, right? But I would just tell him, you know, I think that, you know, just me being there for him and you know, I've contemplated what, like, my son's very smart, first of all, you know, and I'm still scared to have that conversation with him of like my past, you know, and I want to tell him one day that, you know, that this is what Dad did, but I, you know, I think that like I want to let my son know that he doesn't need those in his life to have a better life, right? I think that, you know, he has his mom, he has his dad, his grandparents, and I just want to, you know, care about him and love him, and that way he doesn't have to go through the things that I did. Same thing with my daughters, you know. But,
the word belonging, when you thought of belonging as a child in your teenage years, it was that lifestyle, these people that you thought were there for you, but it was all in an unhealthy way. When you think about the word belonging now, what would be your definition of it?
Belonging. To me, belonging is like the best way I can associate it is with like my family, right? And like my family and my work are so closely entwined, right? Like my family is proud that I work, you know, like that I can provide, you know, when I have to leave at odd hours of the night, you know, like my wife doesn't, she supports me, my son understands, you know, but like to me belonging, I don't know, I just feel like I belong somewhere today. I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I belong at home. I feel like I belong at the edge. I feel like I belong at the houses with the guys, you know, and I don't know, belonging just feels so good, you know?
Having that belonging, that connection, you know, like I feel connected to you, I feel connected to the staff and the clients, and we're just one big family.
Yeah.
It's so nice. It was so nice to sit with you and talk to you and not be hustled. Me and Sergio, when we're talking, it's like, I gotta go, man, it's good to see you. And it's all crazy, so thanks for taking this time.
Thank you for having me, Jenny.
Yeah, and sharing your story with us. All right, cool.
Thanks
you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.